Hello and welcome to YTV. I'm Danielle Trudeau.
And I'm Madison Allworth. This Thursday, Yale faculty postponed the vote on grading policy changes until November. The ad hoc committee on grading, chaired by economics professor Ray Fair, had recommended a 100-point grading scale to combat grade inflation.
Since that proposal in February, student opposition has been rising. The YCC said students were concerned that the grading committee lacked student representation, failed to address student concerns adequately, and had flaws in its research objectives. Students also felt that the proposed changes would make Yale more competitive, less collaborative, and take away from their extracurricular interests.
A YCC survey found that 79% of student respondents opposed the grading scale changes. 2 weeks ago, the committee met with nearly 60 students in a 3-hour YCC open forum to address these concerns.
Although faculty ultimately supported more grade transparency, the vote was tabled due to these concerns. A new proposal will be presented next fall. As the temperatures rise in New Haven, things for the Yale's men's hockey team are heating up on the ice. Georgiana Wagman is at Ingalls Rink with more on this. Georgiana?
The excitement here at Ingalls Rink is unlike anything the hockey team has ever experienced. With just 2 games standing in between the Bulldogs and their first ever national championship, the stakes have never been higher for men's hockey. But just 5 weeks ago, the Bulldogs' postseason hopes were hanging delicately in the balance following a disappointing exit from the ECAC playoffs. During the regular season, Yale had put itself in a good position to make the NCAA tournament after going 16, 10, and 3. But after getting shut out by Union and Quinnipiac in its final 2 games, Yale's once rosy tournament hopes took a turn for the worse. Suddenly, Yale's future depended on a Notre Dame win over Michigan in the CCHA championship game.
It's kind of unbelievable, actually. I was sitting in the Bass library working on a paper, and I just kept on hitting update. And then finally, when it came, Rob actually came out of nowhere and grabbed me from behind. It was like going to the regionals, and I was like, I didn't know what to say right then. I didn't know what it meant, but it's pretty unbelievable.
After the Notre Dame win, Yale was back in control of its own destiny and fueled by its frustrating finish in the ECAC tournament.
I think it sparked us a little bit. I don't think it necessarily showed what kind of team we were. We wanted to show that we were a lot better than that and a lot better than those scores indicated. So it really fueled us to be better.
The Bulldogs were in, but nobody gave them much of a chance. Yale was placed in the same region as Minnesota and North Dakota, 2 of college hockey's most talented teams.
Any teams would have been a huge challenge, but obviously those 2 programs are, have a ton of history behind them, and so they were 2 great teams with a ton of high-profile players.
Yale traveled to Grand Rapids, Michigan to take on Minnesota, the number 2 team in the nation, in its first-round game. The Elis stunned the college hockey world when Jesse Root scored just 9 seconds into overtime to give the Bulldogs a 3-2 victory and send them to the regional final for the 3rd time in 4 years.
Well, I was trying to win the face-off, and I lost it, but Ken did a great job. He tracked down their D and forced them to make a turnover and made a great pass, came around the net, and passed it right through the goalie, and I had an empty net, so I just tried to put it home.
But the Bulldogs' momentum did not carry over to the quarterfinal matchup. Yale headed into the first intermission facing a 1-0 deficit, but Yale, battle-tested after a season filled with close scores, knew that the game was nowhere near finished.
We've battled back before, Colgate at the end of the year there, Cornell we've been down early before, so we just kind of stick to our game plan and nothing really changes.
Still facing a 1-0 deficit with just 8 minutes remaining in the game, Yale was on the brink of elimination. But the Bulldogs turned the game on its head by scoring 4 straight goals, with Root tallying the game winner for the 2nd night in a row.
It's just great that this is all happening senior year. We had some amazing teams first couple of years here, so it's nice to get over that hump of that, regional final and into the Frozen Four.
Coming in as a freshman and be able to experience this for my first year is pretty unbelievable, and I'm just hoping we can take it all the way and win a championship.
Having Malcolm in net may have been the key to the Bulldogs' run. The team lost 5 straight games earlier this season when he sat out with a leg injury, but benefited from his crucial saves against both Minnesota and North Dakota, 2 of the top 10 offenses in the nation.
At any level of hockey, your team will only be as good as your goaltender. And And you know what Jeff brings, from my perspective, is that he's a hard worker. He's a guy that his teammates want to play for and will work hard to play for, and that's really important in the position of goal.
But everyone will have to step up against a hot UMass Lowell team this Thursday.
They defend really well as a group. They got tremendous goaltending, and they have the ability to score timely goals. So it's going to be, they play fast, and I think we play fast, so I think it's going to be a heck of a hockey game.
This season has already been one to remember. There have been overtime thrillers, wild comebacks, and an unlikely trip to college hockey's biggest stage. But with 1 weekend left in playing and a national championship on the line, the Yale faithful are pulling for just a little more magic from the Bulldogs. For YTV, this has been Georgiana Wagman and Kevin Kucharski. Back to you.
Thanks, Georgiana. For students not traveling to Pittsburgh, Yale Athletics will host a viewing party of the semifinal game at the John G. Lee Amphitheater inside Payne Whitney Gym.
Yale isn't the only school from Connecticut to make it into the Frozen Four. Also with a shot at the NCAA title is Yale's longtime rival, Quinnipiac University. Jen Kramer and Kojiro Murase took to the Yale and Quinnipiac campuses to take a closer look at this unique rivalry. Jen?
Yale's men's hockey team made history on March 30th, earning a coveted spot in the Frozen Four. And if Yale wins its game this Thursday, it may find itself playing in the championships against the Quinnipiac Bobcats. As some students will tell you, the rivalry between these two neighboring schools runs deep, and not just in sports. Let's see what Yaleys have to say.
I mean, I don't think Q Packers carries any positive connotations.
Yeah, it's not a bad school, but I feel like a lot of people bring them down here.
The girls don't wear clothes, or if they do, it's very little. Scandalous. Yeah, a little scandalous.
We see acts of public urination, sometimes vandalism, and that's really just a small portion of the school. A lot of kids at Quinnipiac aren't like that, but because that's what we see here on our campus, a lot of kids tend to associate that with the entire Quinnipiac student body.
QPAC sucks.
But how do Quinnipiac students feel about this image? We're here at the Mount Carmel campus in Hamden to find out.
A small percentage of Quinnipiac does not represent the Quinnipiac as a whole, So if people would stop focusing on that small percentage, then maybe we can just extinguish all those stereotypes.
They probably think they're better than us, so. Yeah. And they behave a little better than us.
Yeah, I feel
most of the time. Yeah. So I feel like that's where
sloppy.
that kind of personality comes from.
You guys are viewed as more stuck up, and we're viewed as kind of stupid.
If you were to say, sum up the typical Yale student in a word or two.
I don't know, you just think of the typical Ivy League kids.
Arrogant.
Stuck up nerds.
Artsy, fartsy, non-communicative, and bright.
But where do these stereotypes stem from? Each Saturday night, a shuttle brings students from Quinnipiac's campus to take advantage of the New Haven nightlife. More specifically, groups of students rush each week to the popular dance spot, Toad's Place.
We own Toad's, so we own QPAC. Simple as that.
I didn't think that they partied as hard, but they do. Yeah.
We go into your area during the weekends and go a little wild, I guess, so I figure that's the main problem between our two schools.
It's fun on weekends when we go there and pass Yale, and it's people are yelling at each other. It's I know Yale, you have the fraternity houses, we don't have houses at Quinnipiac, and the house parties, you have to get a taxi, you gotta throw money for that, while the shuttle, he just takes you there for free.
Hockey, of course, is also a major source of rivalry.
Well, yeah, coming here, we just knew of the hockey rivalry, how we have the shirt beat Yale. It's a big deal here, so that your rivals.
Hopefully we can clear them out in the Frozen Four. That'd be great.
They beat us a couple of times, but anything can happen, I think. And the boys been playing pretty good lately.
But beneath all the name-calling between Yale and Quinnipiac, it seems that there is a healthy respect and an understanding that both schools are more than just their stereotypes.
No, I like Yale, I do. I don't have anything against it. Except when I'm drunk and I'm around other people that are yeah, screw Yale. I don't really mean it, though. That's the alcohol talking.
There's one thing both sides can agree on. If both Yale and Quinnipiac pull off wins on Thursday, then the NCAA Finals will be one momentous occasion. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Koji and Jen. The Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team will be facing off against St. Cloud State in Pittsburgh this Thursday. The winner of that game will advance to the finals on Saturday. In an email Tuesday, President Levin, Dean Miller, and President-elect Salovey announced that Deputy Dean Jeremiah Quinlan will be promoted to Dean of Yale undergraduate admissions. Quinlan will begin on July 1st of this year, following the departure of current Dean Jeffrey Brenzel, who has served in the position for 7 years. Quinlan will serve as admissions dean for the next 5 years. He is currently serving as the inaugural Yale NUS Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid. Quinlan expects that his close work with Brenzel prepared him well for his transition. Brenzel said in an email to the News that, quote, "I've had a terrific experience working with Jeremiah over a 10-year period, and he's either been the leader or a key participant in most of our initiatives." End quote. Quinlan plans to become more involved in the national conversations about affordability in higher education and expanding technology usage. He is also looking forward to working closely with Dean Miller and President-elect Salovey to continue making Yale both more accessible and innovative.
Yale's faculty diversity, or lack thereof, is a hot topic among school administrators, faculty, and students alike. Reporters Clinton Wang and Catherine Wang look into the importance of faculty diversity and how the school can increase it.
Minority women represent a mere 4% of Yale's tenured faculty. The school is approaching the end of a 5-year initiative to increase faculty diversity. Last month, administrators and faculty, including President-elect Salovey, convened for a panel to discuss the lack of faculty diversity at Yale. We spoke to faculty members to find out, why is faculty diversity so important for our school?
It is really to enhance the teaching-learning experience in a university that you really need to have diversity. And you need diversity in all forms, intellectual diversity, ethnic diversity.
We need a faculty that looks a lot more like our student body.
In terms of the kinds of questions that women and faculty of color are interested in, oftentimes diverges from sort of mainstream.
It really creates a more fertile kind of way of people coming together, sharing opinions, trying to solve problems.
There's sort of many, many more opinions and many different points of view.
So for students of color, for women students, it's really important to be able to imagine themselves doing this kind of work.
Having a diverse student body, diverse faculty, makes it a much more comfortable place, climate-wise. So there are these sort of issues of comfort and climate so that everyone feels like they belong.
Proponents of faculty diversity believe that women and minority candidates fall victim to unconscious bias. They dismiss the notion that deliberately trying to increase faculty diversity will come at the cost of qualified white male candidates.
We all have these stereotypes that are imprinted on us. And so when we have to make decisions and we have to evaluate people, these biases interfere.
Women are just not given the benefit of the doubt.
I think it's just not constructive to think that, qualified white men are going to suffer at the expense of women.
It is not a compromise, it is not sacrificing excellence in any way. Instead, it's a promoting a kind of excellence, and that's a diversity of thought.
Faculty we spoke to agree that Yale has a long way to go in terms of achieving adequate faculty diversity and offer various ways to get there.
If we are aware of our unconscious biases, I think it's inevitable that the demographic of whom we are going to pick is going to be much more mixed than it has been in the past.
Well, I think Yale does a good job of thinking about it at the undergraduate level, that they have a concerted policy and people whose job it is to think about diversifying the undergraduate population, and they do it, right? And that same kind of laser attention, I think, has to be brought to the next level.
I think we need to be much more aggressive in recruiting.
And it's not just bringing them in at the assistant level, but having more people of color at the senior faculty level and the administrative level.
I've found faculty to be a little bit reluctant to go after individual candidates, and if we did that, we might be generating a more diverse pool.
President-elect Salovey has made it clear that he plans to continue the school's upward trend in faculty diversity, though he has yet to unveil specific policies he plans to implement. Just how high of a priority will faculty diversity be during his presidency? Only time will tell. This has been Catherine Wang reporting for YTV. Back to you.
Thanks, Catherine. We'll be following the story and await any announcements from President-elect Salovey. On Monday night, the Connecticut Senate and House voted to pass one of the most sweeping gun control packages in the nation. The final bill includes new bans on assault-style, semi-automatic weapons and ammunition magazines with more than 10 bullets, a universal background check system, a gun offender registry, and a gun permit requirement to purchase ammunition. It also strengthens the state's mental health care system and bolsters school security. Legislators on both sides still acknowledge the bill was an imperfect response to the complicated issue. Critics say the bill was rushed into law, didn't move far enough on mental health reform, and also criticized the grandfather clause that allows current gun owners to keep newly banned weapons and magazines as long as they are registered. 20 of the 22 Democrats and 6 of the 14 Republicans in Senate voted in favor after 7 hours of debate. The legislation passed the House in a 105-44 vote. Governor Malloy signed the bill into law Thursday, 111 days after the fatal Newtown shooting.
We now turn to our film review segment where Patrice Bowman takes us to a White House under siege in the action thriller Olympus Has Fallen.
Welcome to the 21st century at 24 frames per second, where movie reviews meet movie analyses. This week, Olympus Has Fallen. Secret Service agent Mike Banning, played by Gerard Butler, is demoted to work at the Treasury Department after failing to rescue the president's wife. When North Korean terrorist mastermind Kang Yong-sek, played by Richard Yoon, and his paramilitary group invade the White House and hold President Benjamin Asher hostage, played by Obama not lookalike Aaron Eckhart, Banning must use all of his training to save the president and the United States. He must also do his best impression of John McClane.
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay, mother...
Olympus Has Fallen belongs to that subgenre of action films that was largely created by Die Hard. You have your group of bad guys, powerless authority figures, a closed-off location, a lone wolf American hero, and some one-liners. This is basically Die Hard in the White House. Butler, although Scottish, is solid as the square-jawed American hero. He's most effective when he's busy snapping someone's neck. Yoon is serviceable but boring as the icy anti-capitalist villain with a strong chokehold. Eckhart, Morgan Freeman, and Angela Bassett do their best with their skimpy roles, adding a little dignity to the scenario. Olympus Has Fallen has plenty of explosions and bone-shattering fights, but a lot of illogic too. The Secret Service agents die off so much they might as well be lemmings. And for some reason, the big bad terrorist Yong-sek has avoided detection for so long just by wearing glasses. I guess he's the yellow-appareled Clark Kent. But while the film mostly portrays our country as incompetent, it also wants to yank at our patriotic heartstrings. Olympus Has Fallen, like the Red Dawn remake, has the enemy as the invading other. Cinema has always reflected America's fears of invasion. During World War II, we feared the Japanese and the Germans. The Cold War, the Soviets. After the Cold War, Arab terrorists. And now, North Koreans. But with the shootings at Sandy Hook Elementary and the movie theater in Aurora, Colorado, I find that it's not so easy to transfer anxiety to an outsider when the threat is from within too. In the aftermath of these shootings, justifying any rampage on screen is really tricky. You can't mix a real-world setting with two-dimensional morals and unrestrained bloodbaths. When the line between good and evil blurs, you don't know who to root for, and the violence becomes uncomfortable and real, as it always should be. I don't believe that movies kill people. I do believe that there is a right way and a wrong way to depict violence on screen. Olympus Has Fallen and other movies like it are the wrong way. But all I can say is that it doesn't look like there'll be a similar film anytime soon.
Guess what? White House Down is coming out in July. Die Hard in the White House Part 2. That stripper from Magic Mike has to save President Jamie Foxx.
Back to you.
Thank you, Patrice, for another in-depth look at a Hollywood blockbuster.
And for our last segment, we go to Chantel with Weekend, who plans to shed more light on a new lifestyle among senior girls who refer to themselves as SWUGs. Chantel?
Thank you, Danielle and Madison. Last Friday, Weekend published a cover entitled #SwugNation by senior racer Brunner. SWUG, which stands for Senior Washed Up Girl, is a term used by some seniors to describe their attitude and experiences during their last year at Yale. But does the lifestyle have more implications than self-proclaimed SWUGs admit? Here at Weekend, we sought to understand what SWUG life is all about.
What's interesting about SWUG is that it is a way for women to label themselves as outside of the hysteria surrounding relationships and hookup culture and all of this complicated mess that we come of age into.
Although Yale seniors have been embracing the term SWUG for a few years, the SWUG lifestyle developed a cult following on campus last September after senior Chloe Dramal wrote a column for the YDN entitled Profile of a SWUG. In her piece, she comes to terms with the phenomenon defined by hard partying, heavy drinking, and casual sex. Despite receiving a lot of negative attention, including angry letters from 2 Yale mothers, Chloe has remained an advocate of the lifestyle.
Basically, it means whatever you want it to mean. It means that you're washed up. That means you are going to be at every single party your senior year and make sure that you are like taking it, basically like being like a yes man, just being like, you know what? Do you want to go to the movies at like a Wednesday at 3 o'clock for no reason? Yes. Do you want to climb that roof because there's a ladder? Yes.
Chloe further capitalized on the term by starting a blog entitled SWUG Diaries, where Yaleys can anonymously write about their SWUG-related problems and discoveries. Though SWUG life may encompass letting go of the inhibitions of one's first 3 years at Yale, some feel that the term has largely negative connotations. One problem that Yaleys expressed in their responses to Chloe's column was that the term only applied to certain groups within the student body. Senior Michelle Taylor touched on this issue when she wrote a column in response to Chloe's, 4 days later after it was published.
The term SWUG and being able to call yourself something means that you get to belong to a group, and there are people who will sympathize with you and people who will share in your experience. And I wanted that to extend to myself, and I wanted to be able to extend that to a lot of people whom I felt would benefit from it.
Another problem that many Yale women expressed was that the term conflicts with feminist ideas. The board of the Women's Center declined an interview but sent a statement expressing their concern that the term SWUG, quote, continues to define women based on the nature of their relationship to men.
It's obviously not positive towards women, and I think at first when I heard it, it was a joke, but as I came into my own as a feminist and becoming more aware of feminist issues, and as I started using it more and more, I realized that there's this incredible tension between calling yourself this kind of ultimately negative thing and wanting to be perceived in a way that's much more serious or even just like more respected.
The key to keeping it a feminist term is not to let it be something that is defined by men and relationships with men. I think it needs to be defined by a relationship between the self and the world. And that can be a relationship that has to do with one's sex life or one's romantic endeavors, but it's ultimately self and world, not self and men.
However, for some seniors, SWUG isn't so gendered. It's a general term that encompasses the experiences of all Yaleys, both males and females.
Being a SWUG is kind of reaching your final year and being like, you know what, like all that's great and I did it, all the things I wanted to do, but I've found the things that are important to me. So, you know, like, I'm not worried about what other people think as much anymore.
So is SWUG life just a phase? Or will some Yaleys carry the attitude with them when they graduate?
Definitely. Like Chelsea Handler is a SWUG, you know? It doesn't leave senior year.
It's not that I regret embracing the life of a SWUG, but I think that it's an important sort of transition phase for a woman to go through in order to understand where she fits into her social world.
This has been Chantel Simpson reporting for Weekend for YTV. Back to you.
Thank you, Chantel. That was a supplement to a recent YDN Weekend cover article, #SWUGNation. You can find that story at yaledailynews.com/weekend.
That's it for tonight. Thank you for watching YTV. We'll see you next Sunday at 5.